the grain and graze projects, the numbers 2 and 3, over the last 6 or 7 years has done a lot of research and development on grazing crops. The number of growers practicing it's increased, and people are starting to get some good results. In terms of a mixed farmer with a good mix of crops and pasture, the keys to make money from crop grazing are to have a higher stocking rate, so you're making use of the extra feed, sowing some of the crop early to fill that June feed gap, and using that responsive class of stock so that you're turning that extra feed into more money. They're all key things. We've done some modelling, and it's quite interesting. So when we just maintain our normal time of sowing and we do some crop grazing, often there's very little impact on profitability because we tend to take a little bit of crop away in terms of grain yield, and then we gather that back through an improvement in the livestock. But when we go to early sowing and also putting in a responsive class of stock, that's when it can have a reasonable impact on profitability. So because we're filling more of a feed gap, we've got that feed in that June, which is often we're not getting when we're sowing normally. And if we're using that responsive class of stock, then they can put that extra nutrition to use. And I guess the other thing is that what a lot of people that have embraced crop grazing in a big way have done is they then sow more crop as well, because they've got all this extra winter feed. They put more crop in the ground, and then so at the whole farm level, they've got the same number of stock with more paddocks of crop, end up with more tonnes of grain as well as the same amount of livestock. In terms of crop type and variety, really any crop can be grazed. Well, cereals particularly, oats, barley, wheat, we find that they're all quite suitable. Canola can be grazed very successfully. So it's only really the pulse crops that struggle. So in terms of early sowing, we've really got a couple of different windows. There's that really early sowing window, which is March and the first half of April. And we don't really have a lot of varieties that are suitable for that time of sowing. So what does work are the winter cereals, the winter wheats and winter barleys. So as an example, we've got Urambi barley, which is a winter feed barley, which a lot of growers in Esperance use, and they can sow that in that March and early April window. Some of them have even sown it earlier than that. In terms of the wheats, a variety like Wedgetail, which is a winter wheat. Unfortunately, it's not really well adapted to WA, but in the high rainfall zone, it's got a bit of a fit. And there is a potential new, earlier maturing winter wheat that AGT will be bringing out in a couple of years, and that will be really suitable in that March and early April period. So, and then when we swap to that sort of second half of April and May, really it's all our standard varieties. So, our standard spring barleys and oats and wheat. In terms of putting stock in and out of crops, put them in fairly early, 3-leaf stage, and maybe leave them in for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe up to a month. Take them out before growth stage 30. You can have a low stocking rate for a longer period, or there's still some people that do run large mobs for short periods, and they get along well. So really, I think you can pretty much do it quite a few different ways. It just comes back to what you're trying to achieve. And I guess the key thing is not leave them in too long. That's one of the crucial things. If you leave the stock in the crop for too long, then the crop won't recover and yield well in the end. The crops provide quite a lot of benefits to the livestock, and there's a couple of reasons why that is. The one is that they're very high in feed quality. So we've done some measurements, and the energy is often in that sort of 12 to 14 megajoules, which is very high energy, and there's a lot of protein, and that tends to be significantly higher than pastures in that early part of the year, and particularly June and early July. Often we saw a 0.2 to 0.5 of a condition score increase in 3 to 4 weeks of crop grazing, which is pretty significant in a twin bearing ewe. Whereas at the same time, the ewes on pasture would either maintain or sometimes even go back a little bit. The keys to avoiding crop or reduction in grain yield when grazing is to graze lightly and to graze quite early. So we've just found that whenever you've grazed the crop a bit hard or grazed it a little bit late, so when I say late, I mean July or even August, that's just getting too late. That can lead to quite significant reductions in grain yield. So early grazing's good. I think June's perfect, maybe into early July for some parts of the world, and light. So we say remove the top 5 centimetres, the sort of clip grazing concept. So not crash grazing, don't crash it down to the ground. That seems to have quite a negative impact on the way the crop recovers and yields in the end.